Greetings, greetings, greetings. It is I, your King, King Clifford Jefferson, ascended from Godfrey, the fifth caliban Jew, son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem. I am the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, ruler and emperor of all of Albion, i.e. planet Albion. Alone beside me, as always, is Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont. We're here today to give you this marvelous lesson in regards to part 4 of the Invisibility of the Church of England. So please listen very closely to this dynamic lesson, and I'm pretty sure that will clear a lot of information that you have yet to get up for you so that you can come home back to the true English church and will be prepared for your earthly salvation. I'll let Archbishop say a couple of words and we can get into part 5 of this marvelous lesson. I digress.
Greetings, brothers and sisters from the Kingdom of England, Empire of Albion. As I, Archbishop Belmont from the Noble House of Belmont. And like the King said, this is part 5 of a lesson that we have already been showing you, the previous parts that showing you about the invisibility of the Church of England. And as we're going to continue to show you right now that the church, or the true English church, has returned, the visible church. And we are those who are the heirs who were created the original English church going back to time memorial. So like the King has said, please pay close attention to this video, what's going to be shown, because right now, once again, we are underneath a state of emergency. And when I mean the state of emergency, it's crucial for our heirs to understand that they must get the consciousness of the King's consciousness, which we call natural law. So with that being said, I digress, and let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, once again, greetings again. I'm King. I'm here to give you another marvelous lesson, uniform with the past lessons that we did on the platform. With this lesson, I need you to pay very close attention to the dates. Very close attention to the dates, because we spoke in, if I'm not mistaken, part 4, part 3, about the Kingdom of Iberia. And the Kingdom of Iberia was established between 380 BC to what they call 580 AD. Now we know, as we told you and showed you in the Gregorian calendar, those calendars don't exist as a result of this not being put on the or put out to the public until 1582. So the only calendar that we as an English nation, our Anglo-Saxon Berbers, can go by is the calendar that was in place then, and that is the Berber calendar. So please pay very close attention to the calendar, the date, as well as the storyline that's about to be played to you in regards to the history of the kings of the Anglo-Saxons, the 7 what we call empires of the Kingdom of England. And as you see this, you're going to see in this video a part of the territory of the Kingdom of England that was subject to what we call Great Britain or Albion, or which the Germanic tribes who migrated there called Britannia. We call it Albion. And what's very important about this video is the timeline that they start off in. Because as we showed you, under the Gregorian year, the year 303 is the year 649 BC, and the Berber year. And the Gregorian year is the year 303, okay? 302, pardon self. It's the year 302. And it starts from 302 to 580 AD under the Gregorian year. Now in the Berber year, that year would be from 649 till the time of what we call 1587. This comes up to the time what we call the House of the Tudors. All right, very important time periods, because we know with the House of Tudors that somehow conquered what we call the Angevin what we call branches that were created to do the actual Angevin crown, which would be the Yorks and the Lancasters. This results in what we call the War of the Roses. And all this is based off the illegitimacy of passing the agnatic succession that was practiced by my ancient forefathers to what we call kinetic succession, which was the result of Edward III's son, John Gaunt. So please pay very close attention to what I'm about to teach you today, because your very life depends on it in regards to connecting yourself back to your ancient forefathers who go back to those ancient Berbers, which they now call Egyptians, okay? So all you Moors, Are you Negroes, blacks, colored Ethiopians? Are you Hebrew Israelites? Are you back to Africa, brothers and sisters? We're all trying to get some clarity on where you come from and the territory you come from and the rights that belong to the territory or where you come from. This is the lesson to watch. So without further ado, let's get started.
The existence of England is one that is often taken for granted and looked at far too scarcely. This may be due to the overshadowing history of the development of Great Britain and the United Kingdom. But nonetheless, in order for these unions to be formed, England had to already exist, and it actually has since 927 AD. So how
Archbishop.
created?
Now it said England had already had to exist, and it said it has since 927 BC, AD, Annus Dominios, in the year of our Lord. So Ashton, as we have proved for the record, was our brother of Berber descent, as we can see, of darker complexion. We know he descended from Edward the Elder, who descended from Alfred the Great. This goes back into those other tribes who were actually occupying these territories that were composed of the 7 kingdoms, or what we call the Kingdom of England. All right. Prior to that, it was called what we call Albion or Britain. All right, which encompasses just more than the territory than what we call England, Ireland, and Scotland. As you can see, it branches off through what we call the areas of French, Spain, and Portugal. This territory is going to get into what the areas we call the Kingdom of Iberia, which still had the flag of what we call the Kingdom of England. And this territory is vast. This is why we say King Edgar was the emperor of Albion, of the planet Albion, because the territory that the Kingdom of England covered goes all the way from what we call England today, all the way over to what we call Kush. All right, it extended north, south, east, and west. All right, so as he said, he's only speaking about what we call the Kingdom of England, but the Kingdom of England goes back to time immemorial, when we were living in tribes. Now, it's going to be very important for you to look at the area that's lit up, because if you watch this video from the previous podcast, it shows you the area or the territory that was governed under Ashton, okay, all the way up to King Edgar the Peaceful, which we knew was Jesus Christ. And we're going to even travel back further than that, so you can get a better understanding of why we consider King Edgar as Jesus Christ. All right, because of the wars that existed prior to him coming up on the scene and the lure of what we call the reincarnation of Christ. All right, so play this video, please pay very close attention. Go ahead.
Who claimed the land before the English, and how did it become the nation that we know today? As the Roman Empire began to fade from the British
Go back a
Army,
little bit more.
the area of
There's a clock right here. Play it again. Yeah. Just a little more, yes. See there in 2021, you see the clock, y'all, on the right-hand side. It says 2021. And this is over in what we call France, where my surname Jefferson comes from. It comes from England and it originates in Wales. And Wales is the part of the territory that you don't see lit up here. All right, and far as what we call the Kingdom of England. When we call it Great Britain, is what it was lit up. The whole territory was lit up. All right, and it extended not just on England, consisted of the 7 kingdoms, but it was on the territory of the continent of what we call Europe, which consists of the French and all the territories subject to what we call the Kingdom of Iberia. All right, so you see the date here. Now we're going to stop when the date stops on this clock. Play it, Archbishop.
Since 927 AD. So how was England created? Who claimed the land before the English, and how did it become the nation that we know?
Okay, so how did England become the nation that we know? And as you can see, when it stopped on the clock, it was negative 650 BC. Make sense, Archbishop?
Makes sense.
Okay, all right, we can close off on that video. So what was here before what we consider to be the Kingdom of England? All right, and we're telling you that Kingdom of England has always been here. All right, let me share my screen. Y'all ready for a marvelous lesson? (650 BC). As we know, there is no Gregorian year. Let me share it.
Mm-hmm.
See, Archbishop?
It's loading up now. Yep.
All right, listen, brothers and sisters. Egypt, what you call Egypt, was actually called Berbers, Libyan Berbers, which goes back to the 22nd dynasty of what we call Shushan, who is mentioned in your Bible as Shishak, who sacked the kingdom of the Temple of Solomon, right? Going back to King David, which was prescribed for the Israelites, which you call the Jews. As I told you that if you want to get a good understanding about the Jews, you need to go back to what we call Flavius Josephus, who wrote the books on the antiquity of the Jews. If you want to know about the German tribes who invaded England, as said by Tacitus, then you need to look up Tacitus. These people are the ones who are claiming to tell the story of Jesus Christ, but these people never existed. Why? Because there is no calendar to support the existence of these people. Mm-hmm. So as we can see, according to the display we just showed you on the video, somebody else is giving you a timeline in regards to who ruled what they call the Kingdom of England prior to it being established by Ashton, which we know is a person who looked just like us. All right. So now we're going to move from 927 AD all the way back in time to 650 BC, because BC means Berber calendar. Mm-hmm. All right. Berber calendar. As you scroll down, you see ancient Egyptian era. As y'all see it, it says Samsik, the 26th dynasty, Pharaoh. Mm-hmm. As you can see here, who ruled 664 to 610, was the first of the three kings of that name of Sate of the 26th dynasty of Egypt. All right, in 671, the Syrian king Ashardun invaded Egypt. This invasion was directed against the Cushite rulers who had been in control of Upper Egypt, then against the native Egyptian rulers. The Syrians created administrations depending on the Egyptians, left alone the 12 kinglets who formed a diocracy ruling over the Nile Delta and formed alliance with the rulers of the city Sayas Necho I, who was the most powerful of the Delta kinglets, as well as Pakruhu, the ruler of the important nome of Per-Sukukdo. Now, we see these names going back to the ancient tribes, what we call the Kushite, who would take you back 10,000 BC, all right? But would still be considered the Berber calendar, because the Egyptians didn't use the Berber calendar. They used the Coptic calendar, all right? All you Egyptians, I'm pretty sure you concur with me, all right? So we're looking at the year 650 BC. We see a king or a pharaoh by the name of Samson I. There was only 26 empires of Nubian, which were called Libyan Berbers, all right? And the year is 650 BC, all right? And as we said, who ruled the Kingdom of England at this particular time prior to Ashton, which was considered to be the first Kingdom of England, because prior to that, it was called Albia or Britannia, with those who invaded England, all right? Let's go down. And the Berber year, under the Gregorian year, it will be 301. How we know that? Because you got a Berber king here, right here, Pharaoh. So there's no misunderstanding about who's the monarch at this particular time, because you see him for yourself. So now we have to go back to when Rome invaded, because it said Rome was occupied but left in 651, according to the video that we just read. The Roman tribes, which was the Celtics, the Picts, the Germans, which they considered themselves to be the invading Anglo-Saxon tribe, left Britannia, all right? They left Britannia in 651. But 651 in the Berber calendar happened to be the year of Samson I, all right? But how could Samson I be way over in what we call England and not over in what we call the dynasty dealing with Egypt. How we know that? We're about to show you. It says the year and the Berber year, now they switched the calendar up because the Berber year, as we just clearly proved to you, is 650 negatively. And then the Gregorian year, which we know wasn't put on the scene until 1582, so they had to create some calendar and dated that 301 as if it's coming from us. We don't need you to institute our date. We already got it. We know it's 640, 650, all right? So let's go to the Kingdom of Cush, Iberia, all right? First Kingdom of Cush. This 1070 BC to 550 AD, all right? So these is all Berbers. This is 1070 BC. So this is further up because you remember in what we call the Coptic calendar, on the Berber calendar, we start counting downward.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it's 10,000 BC. Not just 3,000, but 10,000 BC. Undisturbed relations between these ancient tribes who were Berbers until they were invaded by what we call the Persians. As we said, under Samson III, the next ruling dynasty was the Persians, which was the Achaemenid dynasty. How I know that? Let's go here. Kingdom of Iberia. There you see it. 302 BC, according to the calendar that the Gregorians want you to believe is the Berbers, but it's not the Berber calendar. The year is 650 negatively, according to what we just seen in the video. Up to 580 AD, as I just said. But the flag here is what? The Kingdom of England. Oh, Lord, something wrong with that picture. How would the flag of England be back in 302 BC, which is actually 649 BC, and the ruling king back there is Samson I, all right? Let's look at the vast territory that was ruled by what we call Albion before the Romans invaded it. Let's look at the vast kingdom, all right? As we see, when they were invaded by the Persians, this was what we call the Achaemenid dynasty, all right? Persian Empire, before they became invaded by the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
Move down. We're gonna just hit and go straight to the point. We ain't playing around here. Look at this, my brothers and sisters. As you can see, this is called Britannia. When the Germanic tribes migrated here, it was called Britannia. And as I said, Rome left what we call Albion in 650 BC.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but then this is what they say. They'll be invaded here. They're at their height in 117 AD because they're going down. So from 650 BC to 117 AD, so-called Rome is invading what we call England. Not just England, but all these territories lit up in green. Because in 117, they're at their height. So they're not only ruling what we call England, Wales, all right, seven kingdoms. They also rule in France, Portuguese, Spain, Kingdom of Iberia, Mauritania, all on down here to what we call the territories of the Cushites, what you call the Egyptians, which goes back to 10,000 BC. All this to be invaded by these so-called Romans and what we call 650 BC. How can that be when they ain't got no counter? How could these people actually invade these vast territories if there is no calendar to support their existence? But yet we can show you that the Romans came there and invaded all these areas here. Even now, as we said, in the Cushite territory, which were Berbers, where Samson I should have been ruling.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that makes sense for y'all. Let's go back. All right, so we're seeing the Kingdom of Iberia all lit up in green. That goes here. So as we can see, my surname, as Archbishop shows you in his video, Jefferson's surname comes from England, Wales, and Ireland. The top of it says Crux Salus, which means salvation of the cross. If you look at any depiction of Jesus Christ, you see him with a halo around there with a red cross in back of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at the pictures. Just scroll through all the pictures of Jesus Christ. And you see some pictures with him, a halo with a cross on it. This is what this means. And this is the family crest from Wales. All right. This is the family cross from England with the panther in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The ancient arms. But they go back to Wales. And as you can see, go back to the video, Archbishop. Let me see, I'm sharing my screen. Matter of fact, you don't have to. I'll do it. Don't worry about it. I got it. Let's show y'all something. Let's really show y'all how to study. We're talking about Wales. My name comes from Wales. All right, this is called Wales. This whole territory, the Kingdom of Gwyn, Middle Wales. So Wales, one second, let me share my screen. Kingdom of Gwyn. As you can see, you see our lines. Hold up the our honor roll badges, Archbishop.
Give me 1 second.
Give us a second. So y'all see the lines. All right. Now this is 450 BC. 450, pardon yourself, 450 AD. All right. The Kingdom of Gwyn. The Kingdom of Gwyn was a Roman Empire successor state that emerged in sub-Roman Britannia in the 5th century during the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain. Now, if you watch the video we just showed you, it said that Rome left Britain in 650 BC. They said they left Britain in 650 when Rome invaded. All right, in the 5th century during the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain. Now, watch how cool this is. Look very close. All right. Now look very close. Don't this look like a headdress?
Yeah, it looks like a head.
If you look at here, it looks like a head with a mouth, don't it?
Mm-hmm. And I got a hand pointing.
Got a hand pointing and a robe. This is the robe. I'm gonna show you, it's gonna get much clearer. And this is like the caduceus on top. And he's pointing. Now, the only territory that he can be pointing to is North America. The only territory that, remember, the Egyptians were those Uranians on their hair.
Yeah.
And we're showing you that in 651 BC, it was Samsis I, who descended from Berbers, who's supposed to be not over in what we call Britannia, but down in what we call the Kushite dynasties. Going back to the 26th, 25th, 24th, all the way down to the first dynasty. These were all Libyan Berbers. But we showed you when Rome invaded in 117, They left in 650. I mean, in 651 BC, it shows you that they said Rome invaded England. They're showing you that Rome invaded England. Now let's see who was invading England. It's about to trip y'all out. It's Rome and Britain. It says the government monarch and 450. Now this is in 450. Didn't it say 450?
Mm-hmm.
450. Now this is the time of Henry IV, according to the Berber calendar. But let's see who's this king of the kingdom of Wit. Now it says here, let me just go back up there. Says the kingdom of Wit, Middle Wales, was a Roman Empire successor state that emerged in sub-Roman Britain in the 5th century during the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain. That's the town they were talking about. All right, based in the Northwest Wales, the ruler Gwyn repeatedly rose the dominance and were acclaimed as king of Britons before losing their power in civil wars and invasions. The kingdom of Gruffudd ap Llywelyn, the king of Wales from 1055 to 1063, was shattered by the Saxon invasion in 1063, just prior to the Norman invasion of Wales. But the house of Aberrall, restored by Gruffudd ap Cynan, slowly recovered. And can they see this, Archbishop?
They can see it.
All right, recovered, and Llewellyn the Great of Gwyn was able to proclaim the Principality of Wales at the Aberdyfi gathering of Welsh prince in 1216. In 1277, the Treaty of Aberconwy between Edward I of England and Llewellyn's grandson, Llewellyn ap Gruffudd, granted peace between the two, but will also guarantee the Welsh safe rule would end upon Lewis' death, and so it represented the completion of the first stage of the conquest of the Wales by Edward I. Now, Edward I was of the Plantagenet crown, all right? But that shows you that Wales is connected to Edward I of the Plantagenet crown, right? Which descended down from Godfrey. And my surname, Godfrey, is Jefferson. And the word Jefferson is spelled as Jeffer. And as you go back to Jeffer, you see this one. And what's important about this, my surname also is symbolic of the griffin. Now, Cruz Salus means salvation of the cross. Can you see the Archbishop right here in his mouth? Let me see if I can blow this up.
You gotta zoom in if you can, but
1 second. Let's see if I can enlarge. I don't know why it won't let me enlarge.
I say you see if you can zoom in from the browser.
How do I do that? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's how I do it. Okay. Can they see that?
Yep, I can see it. Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody look, you see a griffin
Hold on 1 second.
with a flower.
That's Sister Erica Allen coming in.
Okay.
Or you can continue, King. Her stuff.
Great. All right, so as you can see, for Jefferson, the name originated in Staffordshire, but the origin is denoted to England and Wales. But as we looked at the video, it shows that before England was established by Ashton in 927, the territory was ruled under Britain, which we call Albion, under King Edward the Peaceful, and those kings that existed prior to him. And he said through him, he was the only king without war. So that means there were prior wars to that, which goes back to the wars that goes back to the time era of BC, which goes back to the time era of the Anglo-Saxon Berber. Because as we showed you, 651 and the Berber calendar, that was the time of Samson I of the 26th dynasty of Egypt. So what's missing from our history is 1,400 years. I'm gonna prove to you. What's missing from our calendar is 1,400 years of history. All right. So let's see. Let's go here. It says Cruz Salus, salvation from the cross. And let's see what the Pope said. Now, we're not connecting that griffin with some abstract, because we're saying these people or martyrs of saints actually existed in these days and times, which we call time immemorial. They actually existed. So this saying is nothing to be interpreted as what we call abstract. It's supposed to be interpreted as concrete. So here you see a cruz salud, salvation from the cross, and you can see a griffin with a particular flower in his hand. It's called a bloomstraw. This is what Godfrey, the fifth Caliban Jew, wore in his head. All right. Now we're going to show you. First, I'm going to get a saying from the Pope.
Please pay attention, brothers and sisters, because we already know that it says there's no salvation outside the church.
Outside the church.
It's coming from Rome. So you're in Rome right now.
All right. Look what the church, this is what the Pope said. Salvation comes through the cross, not a magic wand, the Pope says. Listen, y'all. Y'all better listen. We already explained the origin of the Protestant Catholic Church. It's based off a magic wand. Vatican City, the story of God's love for humanity is starkly clear in a crucifix. Redemption is possible because the Lord took on the sins of the world. Pope Francis said at the morning mass, the crucifix is not a decoration. It's not a work of art with many precious stones like you see. The crucifix is the mystery of the annihilation of God out of love. The Pope said March 15th in his homily during the mass in the Domus Sanctae Martyrs, where he lives. Salvation was not accomplished with magic wands. He said it was accomplished by the suffering of the Son of Man, by the suffering of Jesus Christ. Sin is the work of Satan, and Jesus defeated Satan by making himself sin and being raised on the cross, the Pope said. The day's first reading from the book of Numbers recounted how the ancient Israelites were being bitten by serpents and were being bitten by serpents in the desert, and the Lord told Moses to make a serpent and put it on the pole, and anyone who looked at it after being bitten would live. In a similar way, the Pope said, looking upon Jesus on the cross shows people how they are healed from the eternally deadly effects of sin. That's the story of redemption, that's the story of God's love, he said. If we want to know the love of God, let us get a look at the crucifix. So as you can see with my surname,
Which means peaceful ruler.
Godfrey means peaceful ruler, but on the banner it said Cruz Salus, which means salvation of the cross.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and this is the origin of what we call Wales. Now we're looking at Wales, and we go back to the kingdom of Gwen. It clearly looks like a pharaoh pointing. It clearly looks like a pharaoh pointing to North America, because this is called Wales over here. Now my name comes from either England, Welsh, and Wales, which is just territories. All right. Now we're dealing with the kingdom of Wales, but let's look at the monarch ruling at this territory, ruling this territory, what we call Wales, or what we call pre-Southern Rome. This is ruled by Rome. Now, if Romans is invading this territory, which was ruled by the kings of Wessex, that goes back to time immemorial, back to these people we call Anglo-Saxon Berbers, and they were being invaded by Romans. Let's see if this Roman who's invading this kingdom of England. They're not even in what we call the kingdom of Iberia, or over in what we call Cushite territory or Berber territory. They're not even in these territories. They're over here in what we call our ancestors' home, what we call England, because this goes into a Norman invasion. All right, now just look at this. It says the government monarchy, 450 to 460. Let's look what this monarchy is. A picture speaks 1,000 words. Y'all look at that.
Look at that Berber brother. What, looking like a pharaoh.
Look at that.
Looks just like a pharaoh to me.
This is one. Now, these are ones who invaded England. This is a pharaoh who invaded England. And it talks about going all the way up to the time of Norman. It said go all the way up to this. You don't believe me? Let's go back just to be sure.
Now, point of interest,
Go ahead, Archbishop.
wasn't this about the time or around the time of the Gregorian missions?
Yes, 451. But that was actually in the 5th century AD. That was in AD. You know, which is all fabrication, because remember, these stories were actually instituted by one who had invaded Rome, which was William the Conqueror, and that didn't come on the scene until 1066. How we know that? We're going to show them in a second. So we know the Kingdom of Britain, which is in Wales, was invaded by this person we just showed you was clearly dark-skinned, who invaded what we call Wales. And this was called Great Britain before it even became England. Because we know England was considered, based off historical facts, it was established by Ashton. And Ashton was the son of Edward the Elder, who was the son of Alfred the Great. And we know his wife was Elizabeth, who was also dark-skinned, for the lack of a better term. All right. Anybody else making the other edits before I go on? Good to see you, Sister Erica Allen from the House of Arabs. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. It's welcome to have a sister on the line. My wife will be here, but she's indisposed right now. But good to have you. And I hope to see you on many more of these engagements, because the women need to see this, because you are truly countesses. And our obligation is to raise you to a level where no one can take you off that level again. And I'm pretty sure this will establish that, because this goes back to the kings and queens of what they misnomer as Egyptians or actually Berbers. Because as we can see, the invasion of Wales was done by Cunard, whatever his name is. What is his name? Cunard. And he was a Celtic Christian. Y'all see that? Celtic Christian was his religion. And we know Christianity goes back to Roman Catholic, and Roman Catholic goes back to Rome, and Rome invaded Britain. And where? Let's go see. Let's go see. Right, my screen acting up. It might have froze. Give me 1 second. Let me just bring it back up. Okay, here we go. Kingdom of Iberia. Share my screen. Now, remember when we started out in the video, it said Britannia was invaded by Rome until Rome left in 650 negative BC, and that's 650 BC. All right, 650 BC. And at this time, 650 BC, we know that this was the time of Samsis III. I mean, Samsis I. Let's just go to the time era again. 650 BC. Samsis I. So there's no confusion for all the brothers and sisters watching that prior to when Rome left what we call Britain, but not just Britain, all the territory that was covered under the Albion. Because as we're going to see, this territory was called the Kingdom of Iberia. Mm-hmm. All right, the Kingdom of Iberia. As you can see in 650 is Samsis I. Now let's go back to the Kingdom of Iberia, because we know we're not telling time according to the Gregorian calendar, because there is no Gregorian calendar, because it didn't come on the scene until 1582. So that means there could be no Julius Caesar, because his story is told by the Gregorian calendar. So the only calendar you can use is our calendar, which is Berber, because you see a Berber king ruling here. If he wasn't Berber, then the only calendar you can use is the Coptic.
Exactly.
And that will be negative 933. All right, but that's for those who call themselves Coptic, which goes back to Greek again. All right, so he who writes your books sets your timeline. We just proved to you that when Wales were invaded in 650 BC, that the one who invaded looked just like us. He was from another faith, but he looked just like us. So if he looked like us, but a different faith, then the only faith that can be there at that time is our ancestors. As we can see, when they were invaded, it covered a vast territory. How I know that? Let's go look at it again. Kingdom of Iberia. Remember, we're not telling according to the Gregorian calendar. We're using our calendar to tell time because we can't use their calendar till 1582. That's well into the time ever with North America. So we traveling. Remember, I tell you, we who write your books, it's your timeline. So we going back to the time of our ancestors, back to BC. We know there ain't no Gregorian calendar. So now here we see 302 BC, and you see a flag of England. But in the year 302 BC, it's what year for us? It's 649. How do I prove it? 649 BC. Wow. Who is the king back there, brothers and sisters?
Samson the First.
Samson the First. Samson the First is the king of Iberia. How we know that? Let's go back to the kingdom of Iberia, because the year, what year is in the Iberia? 302. But it can't be 302. Why? Because the year is 649, because we got a pharaoh here. There's a pharaoh look just like us. That's our proof that it ain't the year 302 BC. Because if it was the year 302 BC, let's see what pharaoh will be ruling. Put this up for you, brothers and sisters. I said pull this up. I don't know why I didn't. 302 BC. Now look who ruling. Remember, we got their count, we got our calendar, and the ones who invaded got their own calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So ask them, where's your calendar? Because we need to know what storyline, because the word calendar means record. All right. So now in 302 BC, when we go back to the kingdom of Iberia, because remember, he who writes your books sets your timeline. So when we go to the kingdom of Iberia, we see the flag here, but do you see English letters up here?
Nope.
No. You see Georgian language. This is the English language up here. What is this?
Georgian.
Georgian. Now, when you go back to the flag of the kingdom of Georgia, this is the flag that you see.
The flag of Albion, i.e. England.
No. That's a flag of St. George.
Oh yeah, the flag of St. George, yeah.
Flag of King George, but it is the actual flag of Jerusalem. If you look on the Bible, Jerusalem, let me just click that right quick. It's the same flag of Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but guess when this flag was created? On my birthday, January 14th. Let me just show you. Right here. The flag was adopted by Parliament on January 14, 2004. Hold on. You're going to adopt the Gregorian flag of 2004, but yet when we go back to the time era of this territory with a flag, that flag's not there. This flag is here.
Mm-hmm.
So if your flag was not implemented until 2004, that means that the flag that should be there in that territory that you call Georgia should be this flag. And that's going back BC. Berber flag. So that means that these Berbers were English descent, because the year is not 302 BC, it's 649 in the time of Samson the First. So he himself was an English Berber because they got a flag right here. Do that make sense, brother Archbishop and Sister Countess Sister Allen?
That makes perfect.
CA's on here.
Oh.
Okay.
Say it again.
CA's on here now as well.
Hey, well, good morning, CA.
Honor and gratitude. Blissful know you're king.
All right, wonderful to have you. Sister Countess, Sister Allen, you want to say a couple words?
Yes. Well, I'm coming in the middle, but it is an honor to be invited back once again to learn of the history of this vast knowledge of the English Church, the English Kingdom, and the Anglo-Saxon people. As people pay attention to what's going on, things will start to resonate and will start to sink in. Being on this journey, you will know that this is actually the true history that has been clouded over for so long and is now being brought to us. And I just ask that you pay attention, follow along, and begin to learn and come into the light like the rest of us. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Well said, Sister Allen. Well said.
Take over, Archbishop. I'll be right with you.
And point of interest, once again, brothers and sisters, is we all know that our calendars have been hypothecated and been changed around to use us. But once you actually stop looking at the Roman calendar and start looking at the Berber calendar, things will start making a lot more sense. That's that narrow road or track you need to be on, is to stay on the calendar.
Mhm. Well said. Now, once again, when we first started off with this video, we was talking about the Kingdom of England, which is the flag we see here, which according to the video, it said that historically, Kingdom of England under Asherton started from 927. But the video spoke about Britain after the Romans left in 661. Okay, we're here in 649 now, but not under the Gregorian calendar, but according to the Berber calendar. But they got the year 302 here. And 302 is not the proper year because that's the Gregorian year. The Berber year is 649 under Samson I. All right, so when you scroll down, you can see a map over here. Now remember, we talked about the Kingdom of Iberia. Now it gives you a partial view of Kingdom of Iberia, but it's not the Iberian Peninsula. They're over here all the way back by what we call the Black Sea. And it says the coaches of Iberia. Let's just click this right quick. Let's see who these people are. Now, this is from somebody named Herodias. Now, Herodias lived in ancient times, and if I'm not mistaken, early BC or AD. Now, listen what he says about these coaches people who are existing on what we call the Kingdom of Iberia, that existed from, as we said, on their calendar, 302 to 580 AD, but in our calendar, it will be 649 BC to the time era, what we call 1549, sometime around there between the House of Tudors. All right. So this is a historian, Herodias, talking about these people called the coaches. Okay. Can everybody see this? No, you can share it.
Yeah.
Remember, we're still talking about the Kingdom of Iberia. Going back to 649 BC, because that's the Berber year. We don't care about the Gregorian year 302 because the year never existed. On now. I won't share. Let me close. I don't know why it's not sharing, y'all. Give me 1 second. Let me just reschedule my screen. So we're dealing with the time era, what we call 650, 649 BC, which according to the Romans, it would be the year 302 or 301 BC. All right, so we scroll down, the coaches people of Iberia. History. Now, remember, whenever you're doing the study, you want historical facts. You don't want it from a theosophical point, from a philosophical point, from whatever other point you can get to. If it ain't historical, you don't need it because it ain't gonna give you any concrete evidence to support who you are. Now, what's funny about this? Here's people that never even existed telling you about somebody who existed, which we can prove existed. Because Herodias said regarding the Colchians as dark skin and woolly hair and ancient Egyptian race. Now, we ain't even in Egypt right now. We're over here crossing the Black Sea. How did they get from over in the Kushite territory over there by the Black Sea. That means that they were not just there, they were everywhere. So it said Herodotus regarded the Colchians as a dark-skinned, woolly hair and ancient Egyptian race. Herodotus states that the Colchians with the ancient Egyptians and the Ethiopians were the first to practice circumcision, a custom which he claimed that the Colchians inherited from, we're talking about hereditament. We're talking about birthright. It said the Colchians inherited from the remnants of the army of Pharaoh Sisorius, which is not the same as Senusret III. Pharaoh Sisorius is a Greek Roman, and Senusret III is a Berber ruler. This has got the two pictures of him. They only give you a picture of this guy, but look up Senusret III. All right, and this is from the 12th dynasty. So we just validated from the time era of the kingdom of Iberia, from the 26th dynasty of the Samson I, all the way back down to the coaches of the first dynasty. I mean, the 12th dynasty, because here you said 12th dynasty. That's 18th BC. So we just proved that all these people back from the 12th dynasty, all the way up to the 26th dynasty, all the way up to what we call 650 BC, were all Berbers. Do that make sense? Or is this confusing?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And we know based off of just the results from what they're trying to keep up over there in the UK, as you saw the image representation of the Berbers or the so-called Egyptians. It's the same headpiece they so-called wear the wig party.
Now check this out. This is really gonna bug out. Here's the status. 02 BC, which we know in our year is 649. If you crack it on down, you see the Roman Republic, Roman Empire, meaning that this is where it gets to its height. Now just go look at the territory where Rome governed at its height. Remember, that's their calendar once 117. So we ain't gotta do all this reading. It don't make sense though. It's unfounded. Now we know this ain't 117 AD because there was no Gregorian calendar. So the actual year 117, which we're going to show the people in a second, is actually the year where William the Conqueror invaded what we call England, because we see in Rome invaded England here. Britain is lit up like grass. Y'all see that, right? Let me just move it over.
Hi, Bernie.
Okay, here we go. If we scroll down, let me put my thing up here. This is 117 AD. When Rome is at its height, presumably to be at its height. We know Rome did not exist because they don't have a calendar. Am I right? Because what year did the Roman calendar stories told? What year did it come out?
Gregorian calendar, 1582.
Yes, 1582. So all this story 117, we know that's a straight up lie. But if we're going to go with their story just to entertain them, where they're saying that Rome left Britain in 650 BC. How can it be when you just said that you're at your height in 117 AD? BC come before AD. And the Roman Empire is at its height at 117 AD. Look at the territory that it covers. Territorial province, imperial provinces, and client state. You see Britain over here. You see France. You see Portuguese, what you call Spain, Portugal, the Iberian Peninsula, all of this. This is the Berber kingdoms, all the way down to the Kushite territory, all the way over here to what we call the Colchis dynasty. This is the Black Sea.
Point of interest.
Go ahead, CA.
All of this is pre-Punic Wars. So the fact that these are melanated tribes, dynasties, and rulership in this area should be very familiar to all historians.
Now, this is about to blow your mind, y'all. 117 AD. We're going to show you it's all trickery. All they've been doing is messing with our minds. Once again, we know that there is no Roman calendar. because Rome did not exist, because if it was, the Gregorian calendar should have existed before 1582. But since we know the Gregorian calendar existed in 1582, then there could be no 117 AD, which we see here. All right, so if that's the case, if there was no Rome, the only calendar that can be in place is the Berber calendar. And the Berber year says what? 1067. And what year did William the Conqueror invade England? 1066.
Yep.
This is how we do mathematics. You know what I'm saying? We let the date prove our point. Now, it's very important about this. What else? What a point I wanted to make. We can move on. All right. I'm going to prove this, and then we can move on to our. Oh, we got a surprise for you, Sister Countess. You call that. You came on the right time today. Let's go to Godfrey. Godfrey Plantagenet. All right, this is my family's house. Wikipedia. Let's see. There we go. All right, y'all ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go back to my surname, Jefferson. In Wales. Now, when we watched the video, it talked about Wales. Let's go back to Wales, the Kingdom of Gwyn. $450. That looked like a pharaoh. So we didn't have pharaohs just over in what they call Egypt. We have pharaohs, what we call kings, all the way up in what we call England. All up in here. We had a vast territory. That's why it was an empire. All right. Now, it said that this Roman king, Cuneded, whatever his name was, let's go with this name, Cuneded, invaded England or Britain at this particular time. He said he invaded Britain. So if that's the case, he did in 450. So what year is it in 450 AD? Let's look at that. 450. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if it ain't no Roman calendar, i.e. Gregorian calendar in existence, it could not possibly be the year 450 AD. So what year would it be? And the Berber year is the year 1400. All right. So now if the year 1400, who's ruling in the year 1400?
Third.
Come right here. Henry IV.
Henry IV. Okay.
You go to Henry IV. This is where the downfall said. Henry IV, the King of England. All right. He's the son of John Gaunt.
Mm-hmm.
His father. Y'all see that?
Yeah.
Father John Gaunt. Lancasters. So dates are very important when it's told from the Berber perspective, because we know that the Berbers were English Anglo-Saxon Berbers. So our dynasty goes back not just from what they call Egypt, which we know is Libyan Berbers, because the Libyan Berbers were actually English kings. They weren't called Egyptian kings because they were Egyptian kings. You'll wind up with this king.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the year 302 BC. All right, now you're not in the 26th. In the year 649, you had the 26th dynasty under Samson the first. And the 302 BC, because if you look here, in the Berber year, it's 649. And the king in 649 is Samson the first under the 26th dynasty. But in the year 302 BC, it ain't the 26th dynasty. It's the 33rd dynasty. Now, Egypt, with the misnomer, only had 26 Nubian dynasties. The rest of them were invasion of what we call the Persians, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans, and to what we got on today. And as you can see, the ruler of the 33rd dynasty is this guy.
Ptolemy.
Do that look like a Berber, y'all?
Sure don't.
Not at all.
He don't look nothing like those Berbers of Nubian descent. So that shows you that they had to write their story. How we know? Let's go back here to the calendar. If Rome was invaded, according to the kingdom of Gwyn, where is that? Kingdom of Gwyn, and we know the kingdom of Gwyn, first king, was a dark-skinned brother, as we can see here, of a different faith. And he was a person who invaded Wales, as they call the kingdom of Gwyn. If he invaded that territory didn't belong to him. It belonged to the original people who were there. And if it belonged to the original people that were there, then the time era should not have been 450, as we can see here. Because there's no calendar to support a Roman king. So the year is actually 1400. Let's go back to our king. I'm just going through it so everybody who's viewing this online can see that dates are very important. If you go back to 1400 in the Berber year, the king that will be there is the English king, Henry IV. And when you get to Henry IV, you get to the breakdown of agnatic succession of our dynasty that went from patriarch, going back to those other kings, going back to time immemorial. So there y'all have it. Your dates are very important in regards to who you claim to be, because we stick with the Berber calendar, and we know that from 649 to 950. Well, let me just count it. I think from 16. 1 second. Let me just do the math. 950 minus 649 equals 301. I'm gonna do it again. King Edgar from 1 BC to 1 AD is what year?
950.
950. All right. And when did it said that Rome left England in what year? 651. 650, right?
Mm-hmm.
BC. So if I take 950 minus 650, hold on 1 second. 950 minus 650, I get 300 or 301, somewhere around there. So ain't that the same time the Kingdom of Iberia existed? 302?
Yep, 301, 302. Yep.
Let's just go there. So that just shows you that your ancestors were English descent all the way to the time of the ancient, what they now call Egyptians, where they were actually Berbers. Because we know that Roman language is a Latin language, and we know that the Latin language is the English alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
What they did is change our alphabet and switch them up to make it seem like a different language. But how can it be a different language if you got English letters there? It don't make no sense. Every other nation take the language of the English and create a language for their own by mixing up the letters. Don't make no sense. If you ain't English, leave our letters alone. If you're Latin, leave our letters alone. You are a product of your mother country. And that's what we have to understand. We are a product of our mother country because we come from the earth. But it's the Father who yields that land for his heirs and successors, and we are heirs and successors. So all those who are viewing this content, I hope you truly understand that the Berbers, the Moors, the Negroes, the Blacks, the Colors, the Ethiopians, all you are truly Berber of descent. And the only way back to that is through your father's house. And that father's house is Jefferson. Once again, let me prove it, and we can close out. If you go back to the family crest of Wales, as you can see, you see a flower here. Zoom in. Everybody can see that flower?
I mean, it's not clear, but I'm quite sure that
It's not clear, but everybody can pretty much see it, right? It's a yellow flower.
Mhm.
All right, now that brings us here. Genistia. Same flower. It's a genus of flowering plant in the legume family Fabaceae, native to open habitats such as moorland and pastures in Europe and Western Asia. Y'all hear that?
Mhm.
Let's go here. The name of the plantagen. One second, let me just go a little further. Just get it. Description. All right. The name of the plantagen royal line, which reigned in England from 1154 to 1485, is derived from this genus, being the dialectical variation of Planta genesta. Let's go here. Now let's go back to Godfrey. All right. All right. Godfrey was the eldest son of Fulk V of Anjou and Emigrati of Maine. Now, Fulk V is Godfrey's son. Fulk went on to rule Jerusalem, where Godfrey went on to rule Anjou. And Anjou is in France. This was a result of what we call the alliance of Normandy and France through the marriage of Henry I and Matilda. This is called what we call the anarchy, when Henry I's son died, and on the white, which is called the White Ship. And as a result of that, there was a marriage between Godfrey, the fifth Count of Anjou, and Matilda, Empress Matilda, which aligned France and England. And this is where our bloodline comes from, you know, and this was led on to what we call the Crusades. And everybody's been fighting the Crusade to make their way back home to their origin, where they come from, because it was the Plantagen crown where everybody stemmed from. That's why it's very important to understand the Plantagen crown. It says Godfrey was the eldest son of Fulk V and Emigrati of Maine. Godfrey received his nickname from the yellow sprig of broom blossom. It's the French name for Planta genista, or broomstar. He wore in his hat. The Chronicle John Memoria described Godfrey as a handsome, red-haired Jubal and a great warrior. King Henry I of England, having heard reports on Godfrey's talent and prowess, sent legates to Anjou to negotiate a marriage between his 25-year-old daughter Matilda and Godfrey. Consent was obtained from both parties on the 10th of June, 1128, 111, that means 2222. The 50-year-old Godfrey was knighted in Rohan by King Henry in preparation for the wedding. So as we can see, that particular family, that flower denotes to the name that was given from Godfrey, the fifth Count of Anjou. And as you can see on the family crest of Jeffer, it's that same flower. It is the same exact flower, because the actual flower denotes to the surname of Godfrey, or Godfrey, or Jeffer, or Jefferson. All of those are derivative of the same name. All right, so all those who have doubt that who I am the descendant of Godfrey, the fifth Count of Anjou, as a result of my ability to be able to restore Jerusalem, which is in Jersey, because we know New Jersey is called the Garden State. And the Garden State, the only way you plant seeds is in what? A garden.
Yep.
In order for you to grow, you have to be best planted in the soil best suitable for your growth. And ain't no other soil is best suitable for your growth. Why? Because if it wasn't for Jersey, then we would still be in the state of colonization, because it was through New Jersey and Virginia that the other states got their authority by way of what we call the 1787 Compromise. And through the 1787 Compromise, you created what we call the United States. But by the creation of the United States, through that compromise with Virginia and New Jersey, it was unconstitutional because it overthrew the parliament, as stated by William Livingston.
William
Livingston? William Franklin,
Mhm.
the son of Benjamin Franklin, as a result of the creation of what we call the Provincial Council, which we call the General Assembly, the Council and the General Assembly, under what we call the July 2nd, 1776 Constitution, where our rights are protected. Why? Because at that time, they were still under colonies and not state. So with that, we love you all. Hope this lesson was clear. If not, please go back and review it. I'm going to digress. I'm going to let each of those who are attending this class today say a couple of words about the lesson and wish you peace and love. I digress. Sister Countess Allen, you go first.
As you all have witnessed today, the rectifying of these timelines, very important to bring you in alignment and to show you that there's been a lot of fabrication with the history to throw us off. But as we are learning today that we're figuring it out slowly but surely. Also, that was a great discovery about that flower. I didn't notice that at first, and I'm glad you actually brought that to my attention. And it actually, it makes more sense, you know. So in light of things that we're learning today, continue to come back and join us every week as we explore our history in its entirety. I digress. Thank you.
1 second. Also, I noticed on your webpage, it's so soulfully, right? That's your webpage. So soulfully or something like that on your webpage. That's not you. Soulfully soul. Okay,
no.
Somebody else. But I know it's on her website. She has a lotus flower, and the lotus flower is representation of what we call the lotus eaters. And if you notice in the Bible, when Shishak invaded the Solomon's temple, he was at the census. What assisted him was other tribes of Africa, which one of them was the Ethiopian tribes, and they were called the lotus eaters. And the lotus eater is symbolic of the lotus flower, and the lotus flower is considered of the Nile Valley, because if you notice the Nile Valley, it looks like a flower. You know what I'm saying? So it's symbolic of what we call the fleur-de-lis. And the fleur-de-lis is considered a symbol that was given to Clovis I through the time of the Merovingian or Carolingian wars with France. That goes back to the Godfrey and the folk dynasties under what we call the kings of Anglaire. And if you know the history dealing with the Carolingian and the Merovingian dynasty of the Clovis I, which is not by no means a secret, because the first dynasty in North America was called the Clovis culture. But if you know this history dealing with Clovis I, he never claimed to be the descendants of God like the Anglo-Saxons. So that proves to you that they are not descendants of God, i.e. lords, in the concrete way. They're descendants of God in the abstract way, which we know they never existed. Why? Because they're spooks. And with that, I'm going to say peace again, and I'll let CA say his words.
Peace and love, gratitude, everyone. At the sound of my voice, I trust all is well. The King did a marvelous lessons going from time into Egypt, modern day term, into now. Your ancestral lineage is important. He who writes your book sets your timeline. There are a lot of calendars out there in rotation, Gregorian, Julian, etc. And when you follow these calendars, it's sure to lead you astray as far as your diligent study. So this is the part where study to show yourself approved comes into play, because it is through the conscious breakdown of the knowledge of not only your heritage, but where you descend from, and this significant houses. So I give honor to the King's Bench for its dutiful study, and give honor to all of the leaders, readers, and listeners at the sound of my voice. Peace and love, and I digress on this one. Marvelous lesson, King.
Well said, CA. Archbishop.
Well, there you have it, brothers and sisters, from the Kingdom of England, Empire of Albion, Planet X, or Planet Albion in this case. We trying to show you once again that the heirs we never left. We must have been dead in our so-called tomb, because we didn't have the consciousness that was required for us to pull ourselves back into the reality of the living. It's going to be hard, you know, for many brothers and sisters to digest this information, because of the life that you have been succumbed to via your own assimilation. No, you don't have to choose to live that life that you're living. You do have the choice to come off of that path and come back to the truth path, what brings you back to the source. Because like we always keep saying, the power comes from the source, and lack of knowing what the source is, you lack the power. Only way for us to be able to get a connection back to the source is you're gonna have to have some type of direct line or connection, which has only been shown via heirs, via our timeline, via the calendar, as well via our language, and in this case, our English language, which we can prove, which we are proving is actually the language of the elves going back to Albion, because those who were first will be last. And so you have everything you need for you to be able to save yourself. You just have to be willing to come out of those low frequencies that's not allowing you to be able to digest this higher frequency, which is the king's consciousness, which is natural law. Once again, this flag is not going anywhere. Pay attention, because your whole reality is just about to change, because of everything must go back to the de jure monarchy as well as those de jure heirs. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. We already said we've been here for at least over a year on this channel, giving this frequency to those who are really trying to be free, who can see. And so with that being said, don't throw away your surname. Make sure you do what you need to do, so that way you can be able to bring yourself back home to the living. And with that being said, peace.
Peace.
Everyone.
All right.